the 13th district, that this is a really important election for the Michigan Supreme Court. And so I do want to hear from both our candidates about really how does this impact our everyday life. And with that, Justice McCormick.
Thank you, Congresswoman. As you said, the court makes really important decisions that affect all of us, even when the decision is not one that's settling a dispute between the other branches of government. Some of them are that, and they obviously garner a lot of attention, and everybody understands immediately the way they impact all of us. But even when the cases are between two individuals or between an individual and his or her government, the decision we make becomes the rule for everybody else. And so every decision the court makes has statewide impact. So who sits on your court really matters because all of those decisions are critical to how we all get to live our lives. And in addition to the decision-making function, the court also has constitutional administrative oversight of all of the courts of the state. Michigan has 242 trial courts. They hear between 3 and 4 million cases a year. That means we all know people who have to go to their local trial courts for one reason or another, and not usually because everything's going well. Usually when people go to court, something has happened that's difficult, probably stressful, maybe traumatic. And the kind of justice they receive there, the quality of justice they receive there, depends in large part on the administrative oversight of the Supreme Court and the justices who sit on that court. I will tell you that I've spent a lot of my time in the last 18 months co-chairing the governor's task force on jail and pretrial incarceration to revamp the front end of our criminal justice system. I know we're going to talk about it more later, so I'm not going to go into details. But another big project that I spend a lot of time on is the Justice for All Task Force, which is aimed at the civil justice gap. 8 out of 10 people in Michigan who have civil justice needs have to navigate courts without lawyers because they can't afford them. And you know who those people are. In Detroit, for example, on the eviction docket, only 4% of tenants had lawyers last year. Everybody else has to figure it out on their own. What that means is they sometimes do their best, and a lot of times they just don't go, even if they have legal rights and defenses. That undermines the equal access to justice, which is the foundation upon which the rest of it stands. The Justice for All Task Force has a really ambitious goal, and I want to get there, 100% access within 3 years. I have a lot of creative ideas about how to do it. I will tell you that having another justice like Elizabeth Welch committed to making sure equal access to justice is a priority will help me a whole lot. I can go on, but I know we have limited time, so I'll pass to Elizabeth.
Yeah, great. Thank you. It's a great question that gets to the core of why this race matters. We obviously know this is the top of the third branch of government. Most people can't name a single Supreme Court justice. We should all definitely know the Chief Justice, but not everybody does. So, and the U.S. Supreme Court gets a lot of love and attention, especially at times right now, like right now. But the reality is most of the cases that impact your life are decided in state courts, and if it's a big undecided issue, are going to end at the state Supreme Court. If you care about criminal law matters and what the precedent is that's going to affect all the judges in your backyard, you have to care about the state Supreme Court. They are making critical decisions on juvenile justice and sentencing and wrongful convictions. Those all are big issues that our state Supreme Court has decided just in the last year, some big cases, many of those on a 4-3 divide. So those are all examples of the court mattering. I want to just give another example of a big case that we all are pretty familiar with, but will have huge ramifications. You have to sort of play it out a little bit, but 2018, being allowed to vote on Proposal 2, the Independent Redistricting Commission. This is a game changer for our state. We all know this, that the way the new lines are going to be drawn is a game changer. It will dramatically impact our state and our congressional districts. So and that is something that we only got to vote on because the Michigan Supreme Court said we could vote on it. The way the law stands now, the United States Supreme Court has said political gerrymandering is allowed. It is not unconstitutional. It's up to the states to decide. They have kicked that issue back to the states. Well, Michigan did decide. We voted on Proposal 2, overwhelmingly voted on it and approved it. So that work is happening obviously under Secretary of State Benson. So that will have huge long-term ramifications on what our state looks like and how the parties work together and all the laws we all care about. The other thing to know about is the final lines that are going to be drawn under that plan are very likely going to end up being litigated and ultimately decided by the Supreme Court. so that's just another example. But obviously then additionally, the Chief Justice talked about the function of the table that the justices can set for how our court system looks. If you have justices who care about a system that they want to work better and be more community service oriented, then as opposed to just a punitive measure in our communities, that can dramatically change the work that's happening within those systems. And I think that's why these races are really important.
No, thank you so much to both of you. I really appreciate that. And I want to take a deeper dive. The Chief Justice talked about her work on the jail and pretrial task force, and ask now Tim Christensen's input for Michigan Liberation about the importance of that work. Tim?
Sure thing. I can't say enough of how significant this pre and trial and jail task force was for our formation of the way we organize. And really, I was reminiscing on it. It was about a year ago from now, days that we spent at Wayne State University Law School, where we would bring out dozens of people to testify their experiences. And for us, it was really significant. We had just completed our first Black Mother's Day bailout. And during that, I was a member of the bailout super squad in Oakland County, where we bailed. Thanks to Congresswoman Tlaib and many others, we were able to raise funds to bail people out. But what do we see? We saw so many people just like you and me were jacked up in the system for low-level offenses and poverty crimes. Criminalized oftentimes for the color of their skin or for being poor driving into a suburban area from Detroit or maybe from Rochester to Pontiac. That's the reality for many Metro Detroiters. So I really want to highlight the fact the bill driving on a suspended license being decriminalized from a misdemeanor to a civil infraction. I can't tell you, talking to voters about that, talking to our base about that, it's very significant. It's very important because that misdemeanor of driving on a suspended license, we saw that disrupt people's lives, separate mothers from their children based on that. And we talk to our base about it all the time. We had so many folks in that predicament, and we fundamentally don't believe that anybody's life should be disrupted. They should be traumatized for what is a predicament that happens to a lot of people. This pretrial and jail task force was significant. It bonded people. I was on the phone with people up in Grand Traverse County organizing and prepping testimonies. This is pre-pandemic too. So it brought us together then. And, even seeing personally, like many of you, I've had family and friends deal with mental illness and addiction, and to start to introduce some bills that do provide alternatives to incarceration for those is a step that I can say from, with being with folks like Safe and Just, ACLU of Michigan, Smart Justice Nation Outside, DJC, We the People of Michigan, Monica Janer, and Detroit Action. This is stuff that we all want to see. Those are the stakeholders then, and we still are waiting to see these things be decriminalized and invest in more alternatives to incarceration. So that's some of why it was very significant to us.
Well, thank you so much. I cannot tell you how transformative that would be for so many of my residents that have, again, I know as a former Michigan state legislator, some of the various issues that are passed, some of the implications is not even really thought out. And when it's figured out, it seems to be harder to fix legislatively. And sometimes we end up having to go to the Supreme Court to address some of those issues. So I really do appreciate it. Justice McCormick, is there anything you would like to share more about the jail pretrial task force that you've been working on? I know I've heard you speak about it very passionately. And again, we do appreciate your leadership on that.
Yeah, thank you for the question, and thank you, Tim, for the organizing that that you all did. It was really impactful for the task force members to hear from members of the public who were directly affected by this, the front end criminal justice system policies that we have built up over a number of decades, and put us in a place that have really impacted so many people across the state negatively. So the problem we were trying to address in the task force was our bulging county jail populations. Michigan's county jail populations have tripled over the last 30 years, even though crime is at a 50-year low. We had no statewide data to understand what was driving those jail populations, although my guess is all those stakeholder groups had a hunch about what was driving them, and so did people who practice in the system. But data is always better than hunches because it allows us to formulate recommendations for policy changes. So with the help of the Pew Charitable Trust, we collected the statewide data. We then heard from the public around the state in Detroit and Lansing, Grand Rapids and Traverse City, and then studied national best practices. What we learned was not that surprising to folks who live in communities that are impacted or people who work in the criminal justice system. What we learned is that a lot of people are in county jails for relatively short stays, but those short stays are unbelievably disruptive. If you are a single parent, if you have a job for which you don't get time off, if you are suffering from mental health problems, if you have substance abuse issues, even a short stay in jail can dramatically impact your life in a negative way. Just 3 days in jail can really put you in a negative spiral. And a lot of people were being lodged into our jails for inability to pay fines, fees, and costs, and driving with a suspended license. In fact, the third most common reason people are lodged into jails, county jails around the state of Michigan, is driving with a suspended license. In Wayne County, it is the top reason people are lodged into the county jail. That's pretty stunning to learn that. And so we made 18 recommendations. The task force was bipartisan. It was state and county leaders, but we were able to come to 18 consensus recommendations. And I'm really excited to say that 14 bills have passed unanimously out of the House, reflecting a lot of the decriminalization and the disaggregating driving with a suspended license from things that have nothing to do with driving safety. In Michigan, we suspend people's driver's licenses if they can't pay, if they haven't paid some other fine or fee or cost or child support. And those bills are headed to the Senate floor. They've already passed through the Senate committee. I have no doubt they will get to the governor's desk before the end of the year, and it's pretty exciting. 7 more bills have gone through the Senate Judiciary Committee, and they're on their way to the floor as well. There's still some work to do. We have not yet tackled bail, and that's next. But
Yes, please.
and I are going to keep working on it.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm like, yes, please. We really have to address. I know I've been a big opponent of just cannot stand cash bail bonds. I next want to get Jennifer Disla again from Detroit Action to talk about the importance of flipping the Michigan Supreme Court and again the impact on our lives, and then have our candidate Elizabeth Welch speak about that as well. But Jennifer, I want to start with you.
Thanks so much, Congresswoman. So, we talked about it earlier. We saw the impact on the imbalance of the court system with the recent decision on the governor's executive orders. We believe it's important to have our values represented in all levels of government, and the court decision did not put our community first, nor did it provide stability in a plan during the pandemic. Currently right now, nationwide, we have 8 million COVID cases, with over 200,000 deaths. And in Michigan, we have over 150,000 cases with over 7,000 deaths statewide. And in Wayne County, having the highest rate of deaths in our state is over 3,000 people. And, constantly in Detroit Action, as we're calling folks and having conversations about how COVID has impacted them, we're hearing stories about families losing their loved ones and facing evictions and unemployment during this time. So the imbalance of that court decision that was made in regards to the governor's executive order really has devastated our communities. And we really want to be put forward to a place where our values and our communities are put first in our court system.
Should I jump in there, Rashida?
Please
Okay,
do.
great, thanks. First of all, thank you, Jen. Because of what I do for a living, I've like literally my life. First, I had to get a handle on the opinion because I'm running for Supreme Court. But then I had to really dig into figuring out what the outcome would be. I advise clients on how to comply with the law. So we had about 48 hours there where we really didn't know what to tell our clients to do. So that has real life ramifications for lawyers who are experts in the system. So that is an example of the court's decision overnight. Maybe people weren't sure when it went into effect. It's all in effect now. But that was really confusing. Now, the Department of Health and Human Services then came out and issued their own orders under a separate statute. The bulk of what the governor had in place before, as far as masks and gatherings, are all back in place. And she expanded it a little more to be more specific on symptoms in the workplace and different stuff. That is literally what I've spent today helping some clients navigate to make sure they're back up to speed. My advice is just keep following what was going on before, because those were best practices based on CDC guidance or OSHA, or my job is to make sure workers are protected. So protect the workers. I mean, it's just, follow the best practices. So, but what you're saying is right, that this is an example where the court really overnight impacted, the entire state of Michigan. And for those who are in a community that was devastated on the front line, has workers on the front lines and was personally devastated, that emotionally has a real impact. There's no question. Other parts of the state have not felt it the same way, although they are starting to feel it now. I am amazed how many people I know in the hospital right now on the west side of the state. So some of whom did not think this was as important, a big a deal as it is. So sadly, that is how some people are learning how serious the illness is, or the virus. So you're exactly right. And the court matters a ton. And we need to have people who, I think, there's different judicial philosophies, but certainly having people elected to the court who understand the front lines is really important. That is important. You don't want people who are detached from their communities. We are elected to serve. We should understand the communities we are serving.
No, thank you all so much. Now we get to the part that I enjoy the most, because I'm a social worker at heart, and really kind of going through with people just how to vote so people are a little bit more comfortable. I know, again, my mom has been here for over 40 years. It is such an intimidating process. You just don't want to mess up on your ballot. And I just keep telling her, it's okay, they'll give you a new one. But I do want us to be able to pull up what I got on the doors. I've been going door to door and again, talking to folks that are really, folks that want to vote. They're just waiting to be asked. And I think there's this feeling of feeling needed makes us kind of act. Sometimes we don't want to do it for ourselves, but we'll do it for our communities and we'll show up for each other. And that's what I feel like I'm hearing from the doors. But one of the questions I get is, what's nonpartisan? Because again, we're using language that folks don't understand. And I say, well, that nonpartisan section is the section that doesn't count when you want to vote straight, whatever party affiliation you might want to lean towards. But I said, it means that they're not affiliated to as a Democrat or Republican, and there usually are judicial races because they have to be nonpartisan. They cannot be making decisions again via political background or whatever. And again, Justice McCormick can probably say it better, but I just tell them this is the area that you can't run as a Democrat or Republican. You have to run as someone that is about fairness, the law, and those process. But Justice McCormick, you want to say something before I pull up my favorite part is showing people what the ballot looks like.
No, do that. You're doing perfectly.
Okay.
You're doing great.
So, I asked Oscar, that's why I was kind of looking down, asking Oscar to go ahead and share it. So you all, I know my Detroit ballot, and for those that are listening are in Detroit, and again, all of your ballots are different depending on what's on the ballot, but most of my 13 district neighbors get a ballot. The Michigan Supreme Court race is actually on the front. And it's on the front towards the end, towards the middle of your ballot. And you'll see it's kind of darkened, and you'll see it says nonpartisan section. And that's where you're going to find Justice McCormick and Elizabeth Welch. And again, as you see here, it says vote for not more than 2. Well, we just told you the 2 that are going to help folks like Detroit Action and Michigan Liberation get some of the justice that they need for many of the communities they represent and fight for. So again, I would take screenshots of this. I've already sent it to a number of my family. You know, being the eldest of 14, I am a voting bloc. They're all married. They have cousins. Now I have a niece that's over 18. And so I like to take shots of these and send them to all of my family, friends. My coworkers at Access still text me to this day saying, who do I vote for? You know, how do I vote? So this is really important. And again, this is what we've been passing out door to door because the visual is so important. And again, it's the nonpartisan section, and there they are. It's the first box after that section starts, and it's just a little darkened. And you'll see after you see a bunch of other names that have Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, all this, all of a sudden you see names that don't have any of those affiliations. That's the nonpartisan section. And it's usually, again, before you vote on any ballot measures or proposals that you might see at the end of your ballot. It's really important for all of us, again, to share this, because I find that people will get in line, they will go and vote, and their top priority is top of the ballot. I get it. But I want you to know, you know, there are, you know, various decisions that are made here at the local level, the state level, that we need to make sure that we fight to protect, and then also to fight back. Personally, even recently, League of Women Voters really wanted the Michigan Supreme Court, y'all, to make sure that every vote is counted. So a lot of people, it's about 6,000, over 6,000 ballots that reached our clerk's offices across our state that was postmarked before Election Day, but unfortunately got there due to, you know, delays in mail and everything. It got there after the election. It's just not fair. And we all know deep down, it's just not fair that they did everything they were supposed to do, but for it getting there late, their vote was not counted. And the League of Women Voters just wanted a fair shot. They just wanted to be able to get through the door and be able to argue this in front of the Michigan Supreme Court. And unfortunately, because we don't have enough folks, I think that fully understand the importance of protecting our right to vote, made that decision not to listen to that argument. So again, it's so critically important, and share that part of the ballot. And again, it's really, really critically important. I want to thank all of you so much, and all of my field organizers on my team, but also those out there in, you know, Detroit Action, Michigan Liberation. You all know this. We have become social workers in the streets. So we're not even just encouraging people to vote. We're also making sure that they have access to water, making sure that they have all the various access to things, especially during this pandemic. But don't underestimate the knowledge that you might have gotten right now that you're assuming others know. I just learned something today from our justice, that even if you're in pretrial proceedings in Wayne County Jail, you can vote. I did not know that. I hope Michigan Liberation is down there making sure they get the vote, and I bet you they are. But I do want you all to know this is information that we got to share with every neighbor, every friend, and even coworkers. I always was reminded by an activist in our community that we have to work our block. And I always thought he was talking about like physically our block. And he's like, no, there's this network that you already are part of, you know, coworkers, student, you know, maybe classmates that you went to school with, your whole crew. You'll be surprised how many of them are waiting to just be told you need to vote, and how important it is, because they're living their everyday life and they're waiting for people they trust or others to inspire them to go out and vote. I know when I look at a ballot, it's not just names, it's our issues and our values that I'm looking for. You know, that door to get me clean air, that door that's going to get me, you know, a better access to fighting for access to clean water and all of those things. So I really, really thank all of you so much. Thank you. And you all have a great evening. And please know we're going to share this video. We're going to probably spice it up and stuff and really share it. And again, we encourage all of you to promote McCormick and Welch for Michigan Supreme Court. Thank you. Have a good evening. Be safe out there.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good night.